So why does God of
Yeah,
Old
well,
Testament deceives?
well, they'd have to be more specific if they wanted me to address a particular passage, um,
Jeremiah? I think
because
that's usually comes.
yeah,
Jeremiah is the one usually comes.
they might be thinking of that. Um, but in that case, it's the prophet complaining, right? And again, you have to remember that prophets are not presented as infallible. They speak from the Lord, and what they speak from the Lord is infallible, right? What they write is true in the sense that it records exactly what takes place, but that recording even includes complaints, right? It records people's complaints, like the prophet Jeremiah. So Jeremiah is bemoaning because uh, he doesn't think that something went the way that he thought it was supposed to go. But let's just back up a step here and think through, because remember why Muslims are raising this question. In
Yeah.
the Quran, Allah is presented as a deceiver,
Best of
right?
deceivers.
And yeah, so in Surah 354 and Surah 830, it says he's the best of deceivers. But it goes a good bit beyond just that. It's very clear in the Quran that this is something that Allah does quite routinely, right? So it seems to be like a normal thing for Allah. He does it. He claims that he's the best of deceivers. So even Satan is his inferior. He's just a pygmy compared to Allah when it comes to being a deceiver. So he's superior to Satan. But one of the most disturbing things is that Allah's deception includes not only the wicked, whom we might say he's deceiving as a judgment, but even the righteous are the subjects of Allah's deception, right? The people who belong to him, supposedly, who serve him, who love him, right? These are the people he's deceiving, not just the wicked. And we have numerous examples of that. But first, just mention Surah 799, right? In Surah 799, it says that the only ones who don't fear Allah's deception are those who are perishing, right? Which means that even the Muslim has to fear Allah's deception, right? The only ones who don't fear his deception are those who are perishing, which means the ones who aren't perishing are the ones who fear him, right? Who fear his deception, even the Muslims, right? So Allah could potentially deceive them. That's why you have the famous statement that we always bring up with Abu Bakr, who was promised paradise by Allah. But Abu Bakr says, even if I had 1 foot in paradise, I would still fear Allah's deception, right? He's echoing Surah 799, right? Even if that were an unfounded account of Abu Bakr, you still have Surah 799 saying just that. And even Muhammad's companions, the best of his companions, Muhammad himself, has to fear Allah's deception. So what are the grounds for Allah deceiving the righteous, right? But moreover, I mean, his deception is greater than everybody else's, and it precedes any action on the part of those he deceives, which means it's not a recompense for sin. It's not a response to evil. So there's a huge disparity between when the Bible's talking about deception and when the Quran is talking about deception. God doesn't claim to be the best of deceivers. He doesn't say that he does this sort of thing often. He doesn't say that his deception precedes the deception of others and causes them to become evil. Satan says, I'm going to deceive people because you deceived me, right? The reason Satan's even a deceiver, according to the Quran, is because Allah first deceived him, right? So in the Bible, often what you have when it talks about deception is God giving people over to deception, right? And these are people who already love a lie. So they're being given over to the lies that they already love, right? So
Well, are we are you talking about King's account on the King A?
Yeah, so
yeah,
and King Ahab didn't want to hear from the true prophet. He only wanted to hear the false prophets because they always speak what he wants to hear. And so then God is an act of judgment. And there's also a very clear satire in the text. It's sometimes what you can't pick up in just reading something, especially in English that's being translated from another language, is the note of irony or sarcasm that's present in the text. It's not as if Ahab doesn't know that this is a false prophecy that he's being given, that he's being flattered, that his itching ears are being told what he wants to hear. Right? Remember, Micah says to Ahab, "Yeah, go ahead, and the Lord's going to be with you." Right? When Micah does that, he doesn't really mean it, right? And Ahab. That's why Ahab strikes him, right? Ahab strikes him because he knows that Micah is making fun of him.
Yeah.
Right? So Ahab loves a lie. A lying spirit is put into the mouths of his prophets. This is clearly a judgment because this is what he wants to hear. And Micah is even adding, to this the satire, saying, "Oh yeah, God's going to be with you. Go ahead, do your thing." And then Ahab knows that this is all a big, you know, laugh against him, right? So this act of deception is really God sort of slapping Ahab in the face, if you will, and saying, "You want lying? Here's another lying prophet for you." Again, even in the story, Ahab knows that this is not a true prophecy because Micah comes along and spoofs their the false prophet's words. But again, I mean, there's a difference between God using an agent as an instrument of His justice, giving people over to what they love and they want, namely a lie, and Allah in the Quran claiming that He leads people. He's the first deceiver that gives rise to all other deceivers. His deception is prior to everyone's deception. His deception is greater than everyone else's deception. He even deceives his people. And we have a concrete example that everybody can think of. Think of an example where Allah deceived righteous people into believing a lie. Well, one clear example is Surah 4, 157, right? In Surah 4, 157, we're told that Allah made it appear as if Jesus was being crucified, right? That's what most Muslims tell us it means. But guess what? The apostles all taught that Jesus was crucified. So this deception on the part of Allah even included Jesus' righteous followers. So if Allah was the one who caused it to appear as though Jesus was crucified, then he was the source of deceiving the apostles, which means all of the Christians for 2,000 years who have been following the apostles are following people who were deceived by Allah, who is deceiving his own prophets' followers, right? So Muslims are just desperate when they're going for examples of deception because they don't realize that when we're complaining about this deception, we're drawing a contrast between what it says about Allah in the Quran and what it says about God in the Bible.
Yeah, also just add to that, like Muslim tells us Mary is very important in Islam. She's the only woman has surah on her name. She's identified as the mother of sinless person. Yet Allah chooses to deceive Mary, mother of Jesus, by making her to think her son died. Allah deceives whole Christians for 2000 years who gave their life by believing death and resurrection of Lord Jesus Christ. That's not enough. Like that gives already birth to Christian faith. That's not enough. Allah even deceives Muhammad. And then the question is, how do you know Allah is not deceiving you today?